This is my persuasive speech, speech 4 for COM 103. Before timing begins, I'd like to just scan my audience to ensure that I do have people actually watching. And we'll scan the audience again one more time after the speech is finished. Here's my photographer. And if we're ready to begin, we can begin timing now. In the United States, it seems today that acronyms have taken over our lives. You can't get a text message today without it filled with LOLs and IDKs and occasionally a WTF. But there are several other quote-unquote acronyms that give students across America sleepless nights. Now, one of these so-called acronyms really isn't one. That is, of course, the SAT. According to the course workbook for the SAT by the Princeton Review, published by the Princeton Review in 2016, SAT no longer stands for Standardized Achievement Test. It actually stands for nothing at all. It's just three really popular letters that were so popular that the writers of the test, Educational Testing Services, decided not to change them. One way to lessen the stress of the SAT is just to tell students to think of it as a stupid-ass test. However, there are other examinations that students take in America that actually are correct acronyms. For instance, the LSAT, Law School Admissions Test, or the MCAT, which is the subject of our discussion today, the Medical College Admissions Test. Now, my name, if you're not familiar, is Vivek Khanna. I feel I'm credible to discuss the MCAT and to try to persuade you of what is the most important subject on the MCAT, in my opinion. I feel I'm credible to do this because I have been a private tutor and instructor for the MCAT for the past several years. The MCAT is a test that consists of 4 distinct sections. These are outlined in the MCAT Elite, published by the Princeton Review every year. Our copy today is the 2016 version, and this outlines the 4 sections of the MCAT. These are Biology and Biochemical Foundations of Life, Physical and Chemical Foundations of Life, also known as Physics and Chemistry, Psychology and Sociology, and finally CARS, which stands for Critical Analysis and Reasoning Skills. It is my contention that CARS is the most important section of the MCAT for students wishing to gain admission into med school in America. Now, the MCAT is broken up, as I said, into 4 sections, and each section is scored from 118 to 132 points. The average score in the MCAT in the United States last year, again, according to the MCAT Elite published by the Princeton Review, was a 500. This averages out to approximately 125 points per section. However, according to Jennifer Waddell, the chief instructor and trainer for MCAT CARS teachers in the Princeton Review, CARS is a section that's looked at independently of all others. A minimum score of 125 is an unwritten rule as being required for admissions into medical school in America. To be more comfortable, a score of 127 or higher is very strongly suggested for incoming candidates. It is thus again my contention that CARS is the most important section of the exam when attempting to gain entrance into medical school in America. Now, why is CARS so important? Why is CARS looked upon as different than all the other sections? Well, we have biology and biochem, which are subjects that most medical school students or most undergraduate students applying to medical school will take throughout their college careers. We have physics and chemistry, again, subjects that we think most students take in their undergraduate careers preparing for med school. We have psychology and sociology, which are essentially a series of memorized questions regarding experiments and experimentors. And then we get to CARS. Critical analysis and reasoning skill provides passages for students to read and asks them to infer pieces of information that are not clearly listed or described in passages. Students have to use their analytical skills to actually understand what questions are asking them to provide. This is a skill that most practicing clinical physicians will have to have in their careers. This is not something I make up or something I suggest with no experience. My brother-in-law, who's one of the individuals kind enough to be watching me today, is a practicing physician. And in shadowing him at his clinic, I often notice that patients will describe their symptoms vaguely and in non-medical terminology. It is his job to listen to these vague descriptions and come up with a feasible treatment plan for whatever ailments he must decide his patients have. These skills are gleaned very strongly from a powerful background in critical analysis and reasoning skills. Medical schools clearly look for applicants who are going to be powerful clinical physicians in the near future. And they do this by looking and analyzing at their progress and their skills in CARS. For this reason, CARS is separate from all other sections of the exam. While most candidates are expected to know biology, biochemistry, physics, chemistry in general, we must realize that a strong analytical mind cannot be guaranteed by any sort of test that tests scientific information. We must instead use analytical skills and reasoning skills to gauge whether candidates will be not only good medical school applicants, but also good clinical physicians in the future. I'd like to say, one last time again, that CARS is indeed the most powerful section on the MCAT in terms of deciding whether students will gain admissions into medical school. Thank you very much for your time. Before I close this speech, I'd like to one more time scan my audience, just to show you that none of them left in the middle of my rambling. So,
You should scan yourself.
and my camera operator, of course. Thank you so much, my dear.
Thank you.
And that is all. Thank you.